Sekeres Price from Wall Center and today's Bodog poll question asking you which contract should the Canucks pay a sweetener to get rid of? Brock Besser, Conor Garland, Tyler Myers, or you can vote none. Do so at Sekeres and Price on Twitter. Bodog, your source, free casino games, poker strategy, and sports odds. And Bodog line of the day for me. Could be the last hockey game of the year tomorrow. Hoping the Panthers extend the series and the season. This is a pure hope bet. You just want this thing out of its misery?
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, Game 6 back on home ice. Maybe they can win that too and at least give us a Game 7. No?
No.
All right. Well, if you're so inclined, it's plus 150 on your Bodog line of the day. Been admonished, Jeff Paterson. How are you?
Yeah, I'm hoping it ends tomorrow night, only because I picked Vegas in 5, and people never bring up their predictions when they're wrong, but when they have a chance to be right, then people want to pat themselves on the back and bang the drum. But I did pick Vegas in 5 ahead of this thing, so I'm prepared to see Vegas hoist the cup at home. And I always think there's an added value to getting a chance to do it in front of your home fans. I mean, it's about winning the cup. I don't think the players care whether it's home or away, but always just a little cooler, I think, to be able to do it on home ice.
Makes for better viz, doesn't it, when you look back on it, too?
Jeff, let's start with the Canucks, and I know you want a word or two on Nick Taylor, and we're going to get there. But let's start with the Canucks. A couple reports of interest over the course of the weekend. The Athletics' Arthur Staple reporting that, look, if the Canucks are willing to eat salary on Garland, he's the sort of profile of player the Rangers are looking for, a tough-to-play against right shot winger, and even suggested that Alexei Lafreniere, the former number 1 overall pick and, of course, one-time client of Emily Castengate, Canucks AGM, could be in play. And then Frank Saravelli reporting that he's, quote, a free asset, that the Canucks are calling around on Garland. He is the preferred salary to move out, and teams are basically saying, what else will you give us to take him, or effectively might just be willing to take him for no return at all. I'd like your take on the reports on Garland over the course of the weekend, what you think should happen, what you think they might do.
Well, I always get a kick out of market assessments of players. And look, Arthur Staple has been in this league a long time. I don't want this to be about Arthur Staple because it happens all the time as well. But his use of a pain in the ass to play against jumped out at me when he was talking about Conor Garland.
Yeah.
Like, look, Conor Garland competes. He plays hard. Matthew Tkachuk is a pain in the ass to play against. I don't think Conor Garland is. So I kind of got hung up on that. And if that's what the Rangers think they're getting, then I think they're going to be sorely disappointed. Again, this isn't to suggest that Conor Garland doesn't play hard, but he's not an after the whistle guy. He's not a stick in the ribs kind of guy. He's
not physical, no.
Yeah, so that seemed like a bit of I don't know, just putting him in the wrong category in my mind. Now, as for the Lafreniere, I mean, that link, I guess, is always going to be there as long as Emily Castengate is employed by the Vancouver Canucks. So, to me, this kind of felt like some connecting of dots that may or may not come to fruition. Whatever the case, I think the Canucks would and should have interest in Lafreniere if he's available. I don't know that the deal would go down the way it was sort of presented there. As for Garland, much like Brock Besser, look, this isn't breaking news to anybody that's followed the Vancouver Canucks. I mean, they've been trying to move off those 2 contracts forever, and both players remain on the roster, at least as of this recording. So, I think they're both still in play. We know the Canucks have to clear cap space, and those are the 2 candidates. They've got a surplus of wingers. I'm of the mind that I would probably retain a little bit of salary and try to make those moves rather than attaching any kind of sweetener, because let's just use Nils Höglander as an example. If he's the sweetener, Nils Höglander, in theory, should be the replacement if they move off either Brock Besser or Conor Garland. You should have those guys, the replacement waiting in the wings, and Höglander just needs an opportunity. The fact that you might have to part with Nils Höglander to move the contract of one of those players, to me, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I would prefer to retain some salary. Yes, it's on the books, but it's not like a buyout where it would be there for years to come. It would just be, it's a fixed term, and how how much you would have remaining on your books there. So I still think that those are the 2 leading candidates for the Vancouver Canucks, but Are we going to go through another news cycle here? Are we going to go through another draft where they just can't make anything happen, and then we're told to wait into the summer, deeper into the summer, when teams maybe double back, and on it goes. So they've been chasing their tail on both of these guys, and it's pretty obvious that it's the contracts more than the players themselves that are the biggest impediment to consummating a deal.
Couple of bits of context with regards to the Rangers. Number one, I think they're probably having a difficult time internally assessing what value Alexei Lafreniere is. He's a restricted free agent. He's a very difficult test case. 39 points in 81 games this past year with 16 goals. That was actually down 3 goals, but up 8 points from his previous year. So what are you going to pay this young man? And basically, are you going to be paying for potential and paying because he's the first overall pick? And is that something you want to do?
Yeah, probably.
The second bit of context I think we should remember with the Rangers is that the last time the owner, James Dolan, got upset about things, he had his GM deal Pavel Buchnevich to St. Louis for Sammy Blais in a second-round pick, which was an absolute steal for the Blues. So they have made some odd trades. They have made some odd sort of identity, character. This is the team we want to play. This is the sort of way we want to play trade. So that's the only reason I give it some a little more credibility than most. The second thing I'll ask you, Jeff, is would you just give away Conor Garland? Like if a team came to you and said, we'll take the whole contract, kit and caboodle, and give you this C-level prospect, basically a no-hoper, is that something you'd do if you're the Canucks?
In a heartbeat. And in fact, yeah. I think teams know that the Canucks are painted in such a cap corner that they recognize nobody's here to do the Canucks any favors. So if some team was willing to, for a 5th-round pick or a C-level prospect in a heartbeat, with all due respect to Conor Garland, it's about getting out from under one of these contracts. And if that was the way and you didn't have to attach anything to it, then I think the Canucks have no choice but to make that kind of deal. I wish there was a parallel universe and we could go back in time because I'd love to know what the reaction would have been in the moment had the Canucks just walked away from Brock Besser, walked away from a 24-year-old who had the potential to be a 30-goal scorer. But they would have created $6.5 million in cap space for 3 consecutive years. In hindsight, that might have been their most prudent play, but, they would have got absolutely roasted in the court of public opinion. However, we don't know what they would have done with that cap space that they had created for themselves. So I get that there were compassionate grounds when they got the deal done, but still, at some point, they are going to have to rip the Band-Aid off here, and there is going to be some pain, and I wonder if they had it to do over again. And that's with the benefit of knowing the kind of goal-scoring season that Brock Besser just had. Might they have just simply walked away from Brock Besser? It's hard to imagine that they would have, but I'd love to go back and sort of on a parallel track in a parallel universe and see if that might have been a choice the Vancouver Canucks would have and maybe should have made.
Are you expecting any news before the draft? What's your gut telling you at this point? Are you just expecting them to be rolling into the draft business as usual?
Well, the news that came out late on Friday about Ethan Bear needing shoulder surgery certainly throws a wrench, I think, into whatever plans they've got for him. But beyond that, for a defense core that we know needs an upgrade, and I think the plan all along was for Ethan Bear to be a part of that. But if he has to go under the knife for shoulder surgery, it's probably out till Christmas. And so, what do you do in the short term? You don't have a lot of money to spend. If you're Jet Wu, are you getting on the exercise bike and working a little harder today? Cole McWard came in and showed reasonably well, but he just turned 22 last week, and I think he needs a season of professional hockey, so I don't know that he's truly an option. But, we've heard from people like Ryan Johnson that think that Jet Wu will play some NHL games. Might those come right off the hop for the Vancouver Canucks? And what does this mean for Quinn Hughes? Ethan Bear looked like a potential partner, maybe not the perfect partner, but a guy that's played with Quinn Hughes and certainly I think could have slotted in alongside Quinn. If he's not available till Christmas, what do you do? What does this mean for Quinn Hughes? So, when it rains, it pours. I know it hasn't rained a lot here in Vancouver, but it did over the weekend. But it does seem to for the Vancouver Canucks, who just can't get their defense core straightened out. And now I think this adds a new layer of complexity to all of this and maybe more questions than answers. So, to bring that back to your question, like, does this force them to address that issue? And what do you do with Ethan Bear? Like, is it just a 1-year contract? Is he going to have to take his qualifying offer? They better not lock him into, a long-term deal if shoulder surgery becomes more than that and he never is able to fully get back to the level that he was at and all those types of things. So I would think Ethan Bear, probably takes his qualifying offer and is under contract for next year, and then it becomes a show-me deal for whatever length of time he's able to get into the lineup and play. But, yeah, so many moving parts. But in terms of a big deal, not before they arrive on the ground in Nashville, but the Canucks are a team that have shown here in recent years, whether it was the JT Miller deal on the draft floor at Rogers Arena in 2019, the draft day deal for OEL and Conor Garland. The Vancouver Canucks have been active. Last year, we saw the pictures of Alvin and Lou Lamoriello on the draft floor in Montreal. So the Canucks have used the draft in recent years as fertile ground to make deals. And so, I'm certainly expecting that they will be in the mix. And I've got, my eyes, guys, on the Nashville Predators, the host team of the draft. New general manager Barry Trotz, who's on the record as saying they need offense. They were the 27th highest scoring team in the NHL, 28th on the power play last year. They need a bump. The host team so often likes to make a splash in front of its home crowd. I'm keeping a pretty close eye on the Nashville Predators around this year's draft.
Well, Trotz also said if we have to take a step back for a year or two, he talked about being in the mushy middle being death. So, yes, I do think you're going to see a reconfiguration of the Nashville Predators under Barry Trotz. As for Bear, Jeff, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It might be an unfortunate injury for him, but it might at least pave the way for a much easier negotiation on the RFA contract, given that he has ARB rights. I'm with you. I mean, at this stage, if he's feeling vulnerable, take the QO and move on, but you're going to have to backfill in the early going potentially. And then there's this, gents. They have no cap space. I'm looking at all the trade reports, the trade rumors over the course of the weekends, including some very, very big names. They've made a very big Bo Horvat trade. They've made a very big Philip Hronek trade. And they had a deal in place for JT Miller going to Pittsburgh. Is it possible they make a blockbuster here, guys? I mean, it may be another summer of blockbusters here in the National Hockey League because cap space is so tight. So we may see Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. We may see Shea Weber for PK Subban, those sorts of deals. Jeff, your thoughts? Possible that they just swing a blockbuster because it's so difficult to fiddle around the edges with the cap?
Sure. I mean, it's possible. I have no intel that it's going down. But yeah, I mean, I look, there will be significant trades at the draft. There always are. That's just part of life in today's National Hockey League. So whether the Canucks are involved, I don't have a crystal ball on that one. But yeah, it's completely possible. Time is ticking towards JT Miller getting his trade protection. So again, I don't think you can discount that altogether. And just quickly, guys, back on Ethan Bear for a sec, does make you wonder. There's been absolutely nothing on the Kyle Burrows or Noah Juleson front. Both right side guys. If Ethan Bear's on the shelf for a while, I do wonder if there is any sort of late doubling back here before either one of those guys hits the open market.
So you're looking at me side-eyed when I say blockbuster.
No, not really.
You not consider, or you just don't think there's any chance?
I just don't think there's any chance. I don't think there's. I hold out a 0.5% of chance of a JT Miller trade, but overall. Mm-hmm. I don't see. I don't even know what the parts would be. I mean, is the only part JT Miller? Is that the only possibility you're thinking
of? Not necessarily.
No.
Well, if number 40 goes and says, "Look, guys, you got to show me that you can build a winner. I'm not willing to extend right now."
I don't think they make that determination early in the summer. No. I mean,
no. You have time on that one if you want.
Yeah.
I also wonder about Demko long-term being here, but nevertheless, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
Jeff on the golf, Abbotsford's Nick Taylor with a Canadian moment for the ages, sporting-wise.
Yeah, I mean, that putt is going to last in all of our memory banks for the remainder of time. I mean, it truly was a historic moment. What I think will get lost, though, is the fact that Nick Taylor was just stones in the birdie on 17. Made a slippery birdie on 18 that got him to 17 under par, and that was the score that got him into the playoffs. In the first playoff hole, he had to make a 5-footer downhill to extend. This guy went to the claw putting grip and has become one of the best putters on the PGA Tour. in a relatively short span, and the numbers back that up. And so, yeah, I mean, look, there's a huge element of luck in holding a 74-foot putt. He made more feet of putts in that one stroke than I've made all summer. And you guys know that firsthand. You've seen me in my putting. So, yes, he's a pro, and yes, he had the line, but still, there's a huge element of luck in making a putt from that distance with the extenuating circumstances of being a Canadian boy trying to win the Canadian Open and all that kind of stuff. So to me, that was an incredible moment in the aftermath and the celebration that's still going on, but it was just the ability to hold putts down the stretch when he had to, and then the first playoff hole. And the playoff was great too, because there were some great shots. They both looked like they were in trouble at times and got out of jail and just kept pushing there.
Honestly, if Fleetwood had won after going into the stands, like, honestly, how that's just a free drop, I'll never know.
But man-made object, Blake.
Good for Nick. Like, Nick, I think we all know. I mean, just as down to earth as they come, unassuming. Not the highest profile guy in the golf world, obviously, but I think like 3 PGA Tour wins now under his belt, including the first Canadian to win on Canadian soil. It was 69 years. Like, I always think too, like, what does that look like when he walks onto the practice tee at the U.S. Open today? And the entire golf world was watching. You've seen the reaction on Twitter from so many of his fellow pros, like, just instant credibility. Not that he didn't already have it, but I just think that would be an incredible moment to walk down the line of the practice range at Los Angeles Country Club, and just every single person in the game knows exactly what you did yesterday to make a little Canadian history.
I think it might be stumbles to the practice tee based on celebration.
Maybe today's a day off entirely.
Yeah, indeed. and the other part about it, I mean, the security guard spearing. Hadwin and Taylor will always be linked. Same hometown, same club, Ledgeview. And here's now Hadwin inextricably linked to the celebration for Taylor I was going to say the 72nd green, the 76th green of the Canadian Open yesterday. Marvelous stuff. Jeff, thank you for this. Have a great week with Rinkwide, and we'll catch up with you either next Monday or as news merits.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks.
This Sekeres and Price clip brought to you by Bodog. Make a play at Canada's choice for free casino games, sports odds, and poker strategies.